I am against this marriage.
My sister's words froze up the peaceful atmosphere. My mother was too surprised to say anything, and my father was confused by what she suddenly said. Today was the first time my fiance's parents were going to meet my parents, and they had just arrived at their house and exchanged greetings in the living room. The whole family was in a very welcoming mood because I was finally going to get married in my early 40s, and the other's parents seemed to be very nice people too. But now that my sister knew the truth, she couldn't keep quiet about it. My younger sister Jennifer is 34 years old, whose divorce had just recently been finalized. At my sister's words, my fiance's smile froze in its place, and her parents' face stiffened. I was deeply hurt and about to cry.
Why are you suddenly going on about this?
Remembering our talk from yesterday, my sister's heart ached.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I didn't think your partner was this person.
You didn't say anything yesterday, though.
You've shown me selfies with her yesterday, but her hairstyle, hair color, makeup, and clothes have changed so much, I couldn't tell.
I really didn't recognize her at the time. But today, when I took the time to look at her face, I realized who she really is. So, your younger sister is officially against this marriage. Kevin, you must never marry this woman. My mother was the only one who understood my sister's words.
Don't tell me that Jane is that person.
She asked with a sense of fear and trepidation.
I'm sure of it. I'll show you the proof now.
My sister then glared at my fiancé, her ex-husband's affair partner.
You told my ex-husband your name was Anne, but it was an alias.
Your real name is Jane, or is that a false name too? Are they even your real parents? My mother covered her eyes with one hand and tilted her head backwards.
Oh my, she murmured.
My father and I were still blankly staring at her because Jennifer had only told our mother about the details of her divorce. Jane's mother's face grimaced in disapproval.
We've been listening without saying anything, but how rude of you. We are Jane's real parents.
Don't insult our daughter like that.
She shouted at my sister.
I see. So you really intended to marry Kevin?
You've already destroyed my family, but trying to live a happy life yourself? My sister had no way but to laugh.
Jane, I wonder if you know who I am.
I am your affair partner's wife. Well, ex-wife now that the divorce is official. My father and I looked at each other in surprise. Jane looked at my sister with a scowl and said, "What proof do you have to say such a thing?" That's too much of a coincidence.
Are you sure the shock of the divorce hasn't made you crazy?
She challenged my sister with a giggle.
Don't say such made-up things.
What kind of education are you giving your daughter? Jane's father also took his daughter's side.
Is what you said just true?
I whispered to my sister, "You said you have proof, right? Are you sure?"
My mother asked this with concern.
My sister nodded vigorously at both of them, and then turned to Jane's family and said clearly, "Even I didn't think it was such a coincidence that my brother's fiancé would be my ex-husband's affair partner." As I said before, her appearance has completely changed, and I didn't recognize her when I saw her picture yesterday. But today, when I saw her in person, I realized right away. "Jane, you changed your perfume." My sister started speaking.
I could smell it from the picture, but I could tell first thing when I met Jane. You had that distinctive perfume smell. It was sweet, like vanilla. The smell on my husband's suit in bed, I will never forget it. The moment I smelled it, I had a flashback of bad memories.
What? Are you saying that I'm the affair partner just because we share the same perfume? That's a terrible accusation.
Jane laughed at my sister's words.
Perfume is sold everywhere, and you call that proof?
Jane's mother joins in and looks down on my sister.
Jennifer, that's not all, is it?
My mother looks concerned, unlike my father who is watching everything in silence. I'm sure he has mixed feelings about my fiancé who I finally decided to marry.
Of course, the first thing I noticed was the perfume. I have other proof, I'll go get it now.
My sister brought something from her room. She placed the envelope on the coffee table in the living room and everyone peeked in. In it, apparently there were pictures that she had shown to her ex-husband and lawyer, but didn't want to show me or my parents at the time. My sister has looked at it many times to print it out, and she seems to have concluded that there is no doubt after carefully observing the face of my fiancé sitting in front of her.
What's this?
My sister stopped Jane's father as he tried to reach for the envelope.
Inside this envelope are pictures of my ex-husband and his affair partner taken at my house.
My sister looks around at all our faces, with her hand placed on the envelope. Jane's face, which had looked so relaxed earlier, stiffened a little.
Why would you have such a picture?
Jane was still trying to come out strong.
Jane, you're a good girl. You would never have an affair, right?
Jane's mother wanted to believe her daughter.
Jane would never do something that would be so shameful.
Excuse me, but isn't this just your daughter's fantasy? Jane's father also defended her.
What? Are you saying Jennifer is crazy?
I'm fine, Dad.
He tried to argue with Jane's father, but Jennifer stopped him and smiled.
Jane, your life is over, isn't it? You just appeared right in front of me just like that. I'll end your life right here.
What's with that tone?
Jane fought back, but my sister ignored her.
Before we look at the pictures, let's talk about your affair and everything you did. She decided to tell everyone everything.
The reason she found out about the affair was her cat, Moppy. Moppy was an abandoned cat that she found on her way home from work at the end of last year. Not wanting to leave the newborn kitten alone, she immediately called her husband to ask if she could keep it. Her husband reluctantly agreed only if she was willing to take care of it, even though it was still extremely small and looked like a mouse. Fortunately, her boss at work was a big cat lover, and when she told him about the situation, he arranged her work so that she could stay at home for a while. When Moppy was able to stay at home, my sister started going to work on more days, but she was always worried about Moppy while she was out. So my sister decided to place cameras around the house to watch over Moppy. She told her husband about it, but he tended to tune out on things he was not interested in. So he may have just forgotten about it. When she came home from work that night, her husband was unusually at home before her. Moppy flew in and clung to my sister's feet.
Oh my goodness, what's wrong? She said to Moppy, who was sweeter than usual.
Why are you asking? A cat can't talk.
Her husband said, but it didn't matter. She headed to the kitchen to change Moppy's drinking water and found 2 used coffee cups left in the sink. One of them had a lipstick stain on it.
It was an insurance agent. She came to my office, but I left my documents at home, so I asked her to stop by my house.
I felt bad sending her home on the phone, so I offered her a cup of coffee. I felt bad sending her home on the spot, so I offered her a cup of coffee.
Oh, are you getting a new insurance?
I'm still thinking about it.
Her husband answered blankly, fiddling with his phone. You could have asked him to get the documents for you. My sister swallowed these words. If it's just a quote, you shouldn't need any documents, and there wouldn't be a need for her to stop by our house. She wondered if he had gone to the trouble of refusing to sign the contract without consulting her in the first place.
Why don't you feed the cat instead of talking?
Okay.
Her husband's behavior was strange, but Moppy's behavior was even stranger. She kept crying as if she was trying to say something.
When the insurance agent came, she quickly went into hiding.
Well, I guess she couldn't calm down with somebody here.
She replied, and wondered why he would let the woman take her time with a cup of coffee knowing this. She knew her husband did not care about Moppy as much as her, but it still bothered her a little. I'm gonna change, she told her husband and went to the bedroom. Moppy followed along. As soon as she entered the bedroom, she noticed the smell of sweet vanilla. It was some women's perfume that she did not own. They say animals have sensitive noses, so my sister never wore perfume. And yet the smell of women's perfume drifted in the bedroom that she and her husband usually use. Moppy climbed on the bed and scampered around, looked up at my sister and meowed again. She thought she knew what she meant. She felt nauseous.
Moppy, it's a joke, isn't it?
She didn't answer, which was natural since she was a cat. She just stared at her. No way. Her husband cheating on their bed at home? She crouches down to calm her mind and hugs Moppy. Suddenly she noticed something in the trash can by the bed. My sister remembered she took out the trash that morning, but there were many tissues in it. She didn't want to check any further because it was disgusting, but this was most likely a sign of an affair. She wanted to ask whether they even had the intention of hiding it. She liked her husband just fine until this morning, or rather, just until she found out. But from this moment on, it became impossible. That night was a nightmare. It was a big lie that she was an insurance agent. It seems that that woman was a woman he had met at the bar.
I've slept with her several times, but only once at home.
You're the only one I love.
There was no way she could forgive him. The video evidence was captured by Moppy's camera, and after a big argument, they ended up getting divorced. Well, so that's how I found out about the affair and divorced my husband. But I couldn't find out who the other woman was. Nowadays, we don't give out our home phone numbers, so like the old days. You can easily disappear if you exchange your phone number, bullshit about everything else, and then block their number at the end. My sister told us everything. Everyone in the room listened to her story in silence. As soon as she finished, my father and I looked at her with sympathetic eyes. My mother was in tears, even though she knew the story already. Jennifer, it must have been terrible for you. My mother hugged my sister's shoulder. My father also stroked my sister's back gently without saying a word. He's such a jerk. I was angry at her ex-husband too. My sister seemed to be encouraged by the fact that her family was sympathetic with her and took the photos out of the envelope. As she laid out the photos, Jane looked at her parents. My sister had printed out a number of photos where her face was clearly visible in the video. One of them shows a man and a woman in the living room drinking coffee, and another shows the same two in bed, naked, on top of each other. Look, it's Jane, after all. Your parents would be able to tell, wouldn't they? Jane, were you really having an affair? Jane's mother did not have the same force she had earlier. She mumbled in a quiet voice, as if her soul had been drained out of her. There's more. As soon as my sister said this and tried to pull out another picture of her husband, after he had fallen asleep in bed, Jane's face grew pale. Please stop. She shouted briefly and tried to snatch the picture away from her. But my sister quickly secured the photo in her hand. Jane's father picked up one that fell to the floor and stared at it. I didn't realize you were really having an affair. Did you really love this man that much? Jane's father asked a stupid question as he pointed at the man in the picture. I don't think Jane likes my ex-husband. I think she just likes the money. It looks like she was having an affair with several people and stole money and jewelry from their houses too. My sister's words startled all of us. I heard that you exchanged numbers and had relationships not only with my ex-husband but also with all of his co-workers. Her ex-husband thought he was the only one who had exchanged numbers with Jane. Later, however, he found out that Jane had exchanged numbers with all of them and had slept with all of them too. You've been playing around with men and rummaging through their houses? I have filed a report with the police, and the police have taken fingerprints of the culprit at the house. If they match your fingerprints, they will know if you are indeed the woman in this video. The video showed Jane rummaging around while my sister's ex-husband slept. After he found out, he checked with his colleagues and found that money and jewelry had been stolen from each of them. But they cried themselves to sleep because they thought it would be worse if the affair was discovered. Some of them had to buy their wives' jewelry back with their money. By the time the storytelling was over, everyone was pale. The next moment, a snap echoed in the room. Jane's father had slapped Jane's face.
Jane, you should be ashamed of yourself.
You owe everyone an apology.
No.
Jennifer is already divorced, so why don't we just end this conversation? We're going to get married and become a family, so let bygones be bygones.
Now that's impossible.
Jane's excuses could not satisfy my sister.
Sorry for everything my stupid daughter did.
Jane's mother, looking very pale, collapsed to the ground and got down on her knees.
I have no excuse for what she did. Just truly outrageous.
Jane's father got down on his knees but stood up again to force Jane to apologize as well.
I'm not doing it anymore, and I've entertained a man I don't like, so I deserve to get something in return.
I'm getting married now, and I won't do it again if you give me proper allowance.
You shut up already.
You can't get married now. Jane's father yelled at Jane and turned to my sister.
I am so deeply sorry. We have spoiled her too much.
We will return what we have stolen. Jane's father rubbed his head on the floor. His face fell.
I don't have them anymore, though. I've already sold them.
She'll pay for everything with her money.
My sister looked at my parents and me. My parents, my sister, and I were all appalled at Jane's insanity and felt sorry for her parents, so we couldn't say anything. Jane is not at all sorry and seems to think she can still get married. But it's definitely a deal breaker. I just had to ask her to reimburse me for the money, and then we would break off our relationship. Still, I never expected my sister's ex-husband's affair partner to show up as my fiance either.
Let me ask you one question.
Where did you find out about me? Surely you don't mean it was all a coincidence? I inquired casually, to which Jane immediately replied, "Your husband?"
I have been trying to settle down for a while now. I asked your husband if he knew someone with a high income to get married to.
I asked your husband if he knew someone with a high income to get married to, and he told me about your brother. She said that out loud to my sister. So that was how Jane has set her sights on me as a potential husband. She thought that a quick makeover would make her less conspicuous. I hated my sister's ex-husband again. After that, Jane was demanded alimony from my sister's ex-husband's co-workers' wives, reported her for theft, and the police arrested her for numerous crimes. Jane's life was literally over. She is now in a detention center somewhere. My sister ended everything with having Jane's parents replace the alimony and settlement money. I also received a fee from Jane's parents for breaking off the engagement. After everything was over, my sister apologized to me.
Kevin, I'm sorry I ruined your marriage.
No, thank you.
Looking back, I was too much of a jerk to decide to get married so soon after we started dating.
Yes, it's good that Moppy is here too.
Moppy is a cat that brings happiness, my mother jokingly said to my sister. Moppy was not shy around my family and she became an idol in our house. She lives a carefree life, making everyone fall in love with her. My sister and I would like to follow her as an example and enjoy this peaceful life for the time being.